We are going to talk through episode 4, the one where we return home. So I have a question for you to start off. Are you ready for this? This is not a quiz. It is not a test. It does not require any previous knowledge for the week. You don't have to have kept up on current events. You didn't even have to be here last week to know what we were talking about here at church. But here is the question. You ready? Do you like zero-sum games? See here, lots of just blank faces, right? Blank faces. Blinking, right? Like what are these words on the screen? This is too early, Pastor John. What are you doing to me? Right? What are zero-sum games? I heard some no's over here. What are zero-sum games? Well, how would you describe a zero-sum game?
Basically, for somebody, easiest way to say it, for somebody to win, somebody has to lose.
Exactly. A zero-sum games means that if a win is a 1, a loss is a -1. When you add those up, we're doing math now. What are we doing? What's 1 plus -1? Zero. Exactly. Zero-sum game. So a 1 is a win, a -1 is a loss. Audrey's staring at me like I'm crazy. Like what are we doing? Math, right? Zero-sum game. A zero-sum game is one in which when one person wins, another one loses. You love these games. I know this because I see how much you love sports, right? Every sport is a zero-sum game. Think about the Bears. What are the Bears going to do? Are they playing this weekend? Is it still preseason? They played yesterday. Did they win? Did they? Was that the final preseason game this year? So who did they beat? The Titans. Wow, that's not going to happen in the regular season. That's amazing. All right, zero-sum game means the Bears get a 1. What do the Titans get on their column, their record? They get a loss, right? It's just, that's what it is. You get one or the other. You have to get one or the other. You have to get a win or a loss. If the Bears win, the Titans can also win, correct? There shouldn't be any ties, but that's a whole other issue. When one person wins, another person loses. Think about the board games that you play, right? It's the same kind of thing. Think about playing Monopoly. Anybody love playing Monopoly when they were younger? Anybody absolutely hate playing Monopoly? It's usually one or the other. Yep, I got it. Yeah, but what's the point of Monopoly? It's to bankrupt everybody else that you're playing with, right? That's the goal. Somebody just yelled out, "That's capitalism." Well, that's a whole nother sermon. We'll talk about that another time. It's not necessary. There's a nuance there. It's interesting. Zero-sum games are when one person wins, everybody else or other people have to lose. That's how it works. All right? Do you like zero-sum games? I'm going to ask you again, now that you kind of understand what that is. Do you like zero-sum games? I got some yeses, I got some nos. It depends, right? It depends. There's some difference there. But what I want to get into today is I want you to see how we take on a perspective of leading our lives and looking at people, looking at relationships, looking at everything around us. It's possible to take on a perspective that everything is a zero-sum game. When I win, somebody else loses. Or when I lose, somebody else wins, right? This is what we're talking about today. And I think that when you dig into this a little deeper, think about how you use this mindset within your family. Think about how you use this mindset in an argument with somebody that you really do love, right? If I win, or if I lose, the other person wins. Think about how you use this when you're thinking about professionally. Like, I'm good at this one other thing. Can other people be good at it too? Well, not better than me. What happens when you want to move up in your company? What do you have to do in order to make that happen? The person above you has to lose in some sort. The way that we've structured our world, and sometimes necessarily, is set up as a zero-sum game. But even if we live within that structure, even if we enjoy that structure, even if that structure is necessary, do we always have to think about other people? Do we have to think about our relationships with others in the same kind of way? Well, we're going to hear a story today of a story that might be familiar to you, of some people who looked at the world through zero-sum eyes. So let's get into that here in just a moment. Oh, here we go. Look at this. I put it right on the screen for you. I win, you lose. I lose, you win. That's how it works. That's a zero-sum game. Do you act like you live in a zero-sum game? This is the big question. Here we go. Luke chapter 11. If you have your Bibles, or if you have your app that you want to go to, Luke chapter 11. This is the story of it has lots of names. Story of the prodigal son, the story of the lost son, the story of the good father. You might have heard it before. But this is how the story goes. The younger son goes to his father. So there's a family with a father and a couple of sons. They're doing rather well. All right, the younger son gets anxious with his life. He thinks he's not doing everything that he could be doing. And he says, "Dad, give me my inheritance now. I want my share before you die." What's he saying to his father when he says that? "I wish you were dead." Not the nicest thing to say. What does the younger son do as well when he asks for his share of the estate? What would that look like in your life if your kids did that? It would make you a little more financially poor, wouldn't it? This is zero-sum thinking. The younger son saying, "I'm not winning in life. I need my money, and I don't care about my family who are now going to have difficulties because I want my share. I win, you lose." His father agreed to this, which is wild. He agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. So he had another son, an older son, who was still stuck at home. What do you think he must have thought at this point? Right? The older son thinking, "Oh, this is great." The younger son taking off, taking all the things that he thinks is owed to him. I'm stuck here with my family trying to rebuild our family, trying to rebuild. This is huge. This is a relationship between a younger son and a father, an older son and a father, and the two brothers together that is just fraught with zero-sum thinking. How's it going to work out? Do you guys know this story? You've heard this story before. The younger son goes, let's finish what the younger son does. The younger son goes out into the world, takes all of his money, and squanders it somehow. It says he does lots of different kinds of things. Today, what will we squander our money on? Well, terrible investments, right? Just consuming everything that we could possibly consume, expensive vacations, whatever it's going to be. I don't know. What would you consume it on? Amazon. Not the stock, but purchasing stuff. Yes. There is no shortage of ways we could consume our entire inheritance very quickly. His younger son found that out as well. And when he was destitute, when he couldn't even get a job that was respectable, when he was eating the same food that pigs were eating, he decided to crawl his way back to his parents. You see, he thought he was the winner taking all this money, but he really was the loser. So he goes back and he practices saying to his father what he's going to say. "I don't deserve to be your son, but I'd rather be a servant in your household than a servant out here with these people." So when he goes back, his father sees him, and from a long ways off, his father runs to him, and filled with compassion and love, the father runs to him, embraces him, and kisses him, and says to him, "Look, you can come back. You can be a part of the family again." The father says, "No, I want to restore you to being my son. I want to restore you to being an heir in the family." And what does that mean again? It means that he gets part of the inheritance again of all of the wealth that the father and the son, the older son, built up over the time when the younger son was gone, squandering his first inheritance. Crazy, right? Crazy. So the father says, "Let's celebrate. We're going to celebrate with a feast. For the son of mine was dead and is now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found." And so the party began. Easy peasy, right? Father does not think in zero-sum terms, does he? If he did, he would have let the son be as he was. His son took what he deserved, and now he was getting what he deserved. But the father did not settle for that. All right, so the story continues. The older brother gets an episode. So the older brother comes in, sees what had happened, because guess where he was? He was probably out in the field working his butt off, right? He was working. He was angry at all of this that had happened. He wouldn't go to the party. He wouldn't even go into the house. He says to his father, "All of these years I've slaved for you. You never gave me even one young goat." Do you see what he's saying? He is stuck in this mindset of zero-sum thinking as well, isn't he? He's like, I'm working in order to build all this stuff up so that I'm going to win too. And now I'm losing because you're giving away all this stuff to this person who I don't even know anymore. This person who we've disinherited. What are you doing? When this son of yours, notice he doesn't say my brother, when this son of yours comes back, you throw a party for him. Who's stuck in zero-sum thinking in this story? Both the sons. The father responds, look, dear son, older son, you have always stayed by me. He recognizes what the son has done. And everything I have is already yours. You have always had everything that I am, everything that we have. You've never lost. See what the father's saying? You've never lost. And yet, we have to celebrate this happy day. For your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found. You've probably heard this story before. You've heard it in a few different ways. You've heard it talked about in lots of different ways. But I want you to think about it in terms of zero-sum thinking. The brothers were trapped in zero-sum thinking. In order for them to win, somebody else had to lose. And if they were losing, if they felt like they were losing, that meant somebody else was winning. And what happens to us when we feel like we're losing? What do we need to do? We need to catch up. We need to get going. If we're being really ethical and good, we work harder and better and smarter. And if we're not being on our best behavior, what do? We get angry and we cheat. Anybody play Monopoly lately? That seems to be the one that brings it out when I've played with people. Lots of new rules happen. Money gets traded. New trades happen that aren't allowed. The question then is God's kingdom zero-sum? Is the way that God calls us to live, is the way that he looks at reality, is the way that he has created reality a zero-sum experience? When some people win, other people lose. When you lose, other people win. Is that how it works? Well, let's look at some of the hallmarks of God's kingdom. These are the big words, right? These are the big things about what God's kingdom is all about. It's about grace, mercy, forgiveness, and love. Is that true? There's probably other words we could use too, but these encompass quite a few of them. So what do we know about these concepts? What do we know about all of these? Well, when we get to Psalm 103, we're reminded, for God's unfailing love towards those who fear him is as great as the height of the heavens above the earth. How high are the heavens above the earth? I agree. That is exactly right. Unknowable. How far does space extend? Forever, because it's, as far as we know, still expanding. Right? It's forever. How far does God's love carry us? It's unfailing. What does it mean to be unfailing? What does infinity look like? Can there be a winner and a loser? Can there be a zero anywhere in there? There can't be. It's unquenchable. It's unfailing. This is the thing. When we start talking about who God is for us and who God calls us to be in the world, we start to realize that we live with words like this and concepts like this. We live in such a way that love, grace, mercy, forgiveness, peace, and hope go on forever. They don't get a zero. What about forgiveness? How many times can you be forgiven? 3? Third time and you're out? No? 3 strikes and you're out? That's not how this works. No? 7 times. How many times should we forgive my Lord? 7 times? And Jesus says, no, 77, which he wasn't giving us, we have to count to 77. He was saying, no, stop counting. It's uncountable. This is not zero-sum. This is more than that. This is bigger than that. This has nothing to do with winning and losing. Mercy. What about mercy? Oh, well, he has removed our, yep. With mercy, we see the faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies endure forever. His mercies never cease. God's mercy for us, the way that he looks on us with kindness even though we screw up, when is that going to end? Now, let this sink in, because we don't think that way a lot, do we? We think the ways that we have messed up, the mistakes that we've made, the suffering that we encounter, that God eventually is going to kind of get tired of us and move on. He's going to say, well, that's enough with you. No, his mercies endure forever. His mercy for you will never, ever end. The promise that you've been given through your baptism says that you will be with God forever and in a relationship with him that, well, will never cease to be filled with love and mercy. Sometimes people can think a relationship that never ends could get boring. It could get tiring. It can get tedious. It can be really annoying after a while. But our relationship with God is not like that, and he doesn't view it that way. There is no winning and losing here, right? His mercies never cease. What about this last one? What about grace? What's our acronym for grace here at Crosspoint? GRACE. Let's say it together. God's riches at Christ's expense. It's a reminder that all of this comes through Jesus, that we don't get it on our own, we don't win it on our own, we don't lose it on our own. Through Jesus, he gives us grace. Because he died for us, because he rose again, we are given life that lives. Well, how long does that life live? Starts today and ends when? This is this eternal stuff again, right? This is not a zero-sum mode of thinking. This does not regress to the mean. It doesn't come back to zero. It goes forever and ever and ever. So, if this is the way that God deals with us, if this is the way that he shows us grace, if this is the way he brings his son into the world, this is great. We say this at Christmas time, right? And from John chapter 1, and the word became flesh and dwelt among us, right? He became human so that he would know humanity in its fullness. And the fullness of God in his glory dwelt within him. And from that fullness, we receive grace upon grace. Grace that never ends. A gift that doesn't stop giving. When we see all of these things and put these together, being a part of God's kingdom, following Jesus, means that, well, we don't live in a zero-sum world. We can't. We may experience a zero-sum world. We may have to deal with it in the way that we work, in the way that we live in this world. Yes, there are going to be times when there are winners and there are losers. There are games that we're going to play that, yes, you're going to win and you're going to lose. And believe me, I'm as competitive as anybody else. I know fully well we're going to go to a golf outing after this. I know I'm going to lose. I know that up front. It drives me a little bit crazy, but that's okay. Because for me, that's not the point, right? Following Jesus means that we need to look at the world in a non-zero-sum way. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, it means that we win when others win. Let that sink in for a minute. The only way that you win is when other people win too. There is no winning your way to the top. It's a farce. It's a farce. It's a lie. We win when others win with us. That is the only way that God's kingdom works. If that wasn't true, then when Jesus died on the cross, when he rose again, he would have kept his life just for him because he won it. He's the only one that's ever deserved it. But instead, he gave it all away. So the countless generations of people from every tribe and every nation and every race and everywhere would experience his goodness and his love, that they would win too. That is the key. And if we're going to follow him, if we're going to be honest with ourselves about calling ourselves a Christian, calling ourselves somebody who follows Jesus, we have to take this mindset into our world. A non-zero-sum game means that when I win, you win. It also means when you lose, I lose. It means we bear one another's burdens with them. We walk alongside people that are suffering. We care for them. We have concern for them. We pray with them. We walk with them. Non-zero-sum thinking is all about relationship. It's all about relationship. Think about it. When we carry this mindset into the world, here are 3 statements. And I want you to think about where you fall upon these 3 statements. When you think about who you are and who you want to be and who you think that you are as somebody who follows Jesus in this world, do you relate to either of these 3 statements? First one says, I am not the only one who can win. Second one says, I celebrate when others win. The third one says, I help others win. You may resonate with one or the other. Some of them you may have difficulty with, like this one. I'm not the only one who can win. Many of us who grew up being very competitive know that we want to be the best at something. And to be the best, that means other people have to be worse than you, which means you win and they lose. And I think over time, as we grow as people, we start to realize that we are not truly the best at anything. Once your perspective expands and you meet other people and you see other people other way, you might be really good at something. But there are other people who are probably just as good, if not better than you. And you have to eventually realize that that's okay. You don't have to try to beat them too. Because that's the first thing that you do when you're a little bit immature and that you're like, well, I have to be better than them too. Then you start to realize, what's the point of that? What are we gaining? Who's winning? Who's losing? And what you begin to realize as you grow, which I'm assuming as we grow, is that it's better to have more people who are really good at these things than one person who is the best. When we have more people who enjoy reading Scripture instead of just one, things work out a little better in our congregation. When we have more people that go out into the world showing who Jesus is by being kind and taking time with others instead of just one person who's the best at it, guess what happens? More and more people connect with God. So, can you relate to this one? Do you celebrate when others win? This is the key example of when you're watching like the Super Bowl, right? And at the very end of the game, one team wins, the other team doesn't. What does the other team do? That's the question. Like the quarterback of the opposing team, what does he do? Does he sulk? Does he throw the ball? Does he run to the locker room? Or does he go and shake hands with the other quarterback? Do the coaches meet and yell at each other? Or do they say, good game? Sometimes it happens both ways, right? But you can see here that if we understand that this is not that life isn't a zero-sum game, that there's something bigger going on than just this game of football, we can celebrate when others win. It doesn't take away the fervor that you play your game with. The last one is, do you help others win? I think this is a continuum. I think this is where we start in understanding that life is not about winning and losing. We move to this one. We start to see that, we open our eyes to this is okay. Other people can be good at stuff. We can all do this together too. I'm going to celebrate when other people are good at this. And then we move to this idea that not only can we celebrate that other people are good at this too, but we can help others get to that point. We can help others grow in their awareness. We can help others grow in their love for Jesus. I'm going to give of myself. I'm going to intentionally lose and sacrifice so that others can see who Jesus is. And it's not really a loss then, is it? It's a win both ways. Where do you fall in this continuum? And where do you want to be? I want to see each of us here at Crosspoint make our way through these to see internally that this is a win-win thing. God's kingdom is for us. It's for everyone. It's for you. And I want to celebrate when others win, when other churches do great, when other pastors preach great sermons, when other Christians help other people do great things. We celebrate that. And we want to help people in our community, in our families, in our lives. We want to help them see who Jesus is. We want to help them win and be a part of this team. We know that it's only through Jesus that there is life, this life that we live, this life that goes on forever, that's filled with unfailing love, unquestioning mercy, grace upon grace, forgiveness that never fails. Seeing the world as a place where when we win, they win. When they win, we win, helps us do that. All right. I'm going to leave you with this. There are about 27 gazillion examples that we can talk about through our daily lives where we think that the world is really a zero-sum game. We can all think of those. I challenge you this week to stop that. To see it happen in your life, to see it when you think it and think, oh, that's what Pastor John was talking about. And to pause and say, do I need to be doing this? Instead, can I recognize that we can make this a win-win? Can I celebrate with others when they're winning as well? And can I help them win even more? In this, we live as God's people. In this, we follow Jesus, just like the two sons, right? The sons who thought that this was a zero-sum game, that when they won, the other one lost. But the father in the middle of it was trying to teach them a lesson, right? It's not about that at all. It's about being part of the family. It's about being together. It's about seeing him as the fullness of grace.